All right, now let's move into, let's go to your Big Fat Snare drum. You guys, if you're hip to these are pretty freaking cool. And they make different combinations. This happens to be kind of an O-ring in a way. It's going to cover much more of the drums. It's only about what is it, about a 6-inch hole in the middle? Roughly? Kind of like that. So we're going to cover more of the drum. Go ahead and set that on there. Yeah, give me a couple more hits. Put the other O-ring back on, the homemade one. Big Fat Snare. So pitch dropped. Actually, now we're adding a little bit of body. It's getting a little bit fatter. It's the dryness. It's probably a little bit more dry, but not a huge difference actually. Too much there, but it is a little darker. Play groove. Give me some more ghost notes. Cool. Yes, it does almost sound like we brought up the snare mic. Now that's going to be an interesting thing as we get to these next couple. I'm not changing the bottom snare, top snare relationship. I'm leaving them where they were from the beginning. So none of that's changing. So everything we're putting on this head, if you start to hear more snare or less snare or more body, it's only from what we're putting on there. We're starting to add more weight to the top of the head, which is going to start bringing our note down a little bit, especially as we cover more and more of it up. All right, context. Nice. So we do have more body, a lot more body. It's actually, we're getting dark. We're starting to darken things up a little bit.
It's harder to play.
It's harder to play? Mm-hmm. Why is it harder to play though?
It feels like the head is heavier, less response.
So when you're hitting it, it feels harder. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So imagine playing a whole tune that way. So it's going to respond, especially with the ghost notes and stuff, right? It doesn't have that same bounce off the head, right? It's a lot different, yeah. Now, we're going to move, now is the company how, I can't remember, it's called Big Fat Snare Drum, right? They make different variations of this in all different sizes, and these things are pretty cool. Now, this is another one. The house is actually from a 13, so it's a little bit smaller, but it doesn't matter, it does the same thing. The one I've got here is 14. Now, there's no hole in this one, and this actually has jingles on it, but I never really liked the jingles that well, so I just taped them up so you don't hear them. Having said that, you didn't really hear them all that much anyway, especially if you're playing center of the head. But now we're going to get into a totally different era because the entire head's covered. Give me some snare hits. Yeah. Try to play some rolls. So you still can, but it's harder, isn't it? It's a little splattier sounding. There's a little, actually the peak of the transient's a little harder to discern because it's not quite as sharp. Because we have, something about yay thick sitting on top of the entire head. Play a groove with this. More ghost notes. 2, 3. Actually, the ghost notes sound kind of cool. It's weird because you just there's like less attack going on there. Yeah, less rebound off the batter head for sure. Now, one thing, the few times you hit ghost notes here, with this, they start to get lost in context. They just don't have there's not enough strength in those notes to actually cut through this. They're almost more felt than heard, but we're getting more of the body of the drum. Now, one last thing, you can you can do all sorts of combinations with this. It all depends on what you're recording, right? Was that our combination we liked? Okay, so we're gonna leave the homemade, here, hit the homemade first. Take that off. All right, drop your BFS on. I am actually going to turn, with that losing a little snare volume, I'm going to turn the top mic up just a hair. Give me a groove. Now for me, actually, this is cool, but now the hi-hats don't sound like they're the right, they start to sound, as the snare drum gets fatter and thicker, the hi-hats kind of start sounding thinner, and those are 14-inch 602s, you know, they're actually pretty nice, but that part feels a little disconnected. We need some 15s or some 16s now. But let's hear this one in context. Play a groove again with it, just play. There's something cool about this. We have the wrong hats now though. But see what I mean? That I like this, again, it's really fat. I think for this kind of track, again, it depends on which way you want to go, and some of you guys will probably completely disagree. I like the fatter snares actually than I do the fatter and drier for this than I did the more open and ringy. Although I didn't mind the moon gel when it was about 4 fingers in from the edge. I think the drum sounds a little thicker this way. And all this, it's really, if you have a limited amount of snares to use, learn to cut these things up and either buy some of the Big Fat Snare drums. There's the snare weight, which is great. And someone I think mentioned that actually. But the snare weight is really cool. I have a kind of a fake one. I don't know where we cleaned up the other day. It's a plastic thing that just clips over the edge and actually dampens the top. You could cut up old drum heads. You could cut up different thicknesses also to get different weight for your O-ring or half an O-ring, moon gel, gaff tape, whatever. There's a lot you can do without changing the tuning. You know, you could also, you know, another way we could achieve this, we could take the bottom 2 lugs, completely detune them, like completely. And you might have to tighten the snares up a little bit, but we'd get that same fat thing if you detune the bottom 2 and then leave all the others the same. If you have the resources and the time, even if you only have 1 or 2 snares, get a few different types of heads. You know, it's never hurts to have an Emperor and an Ambassador because they are definitely different. I like Genera dries quite a bit too because they dry things up in a really nice way without killing completely killing the tone. What else do we use? That's kind of it.
HD.
What, the HD dry? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's one drum with the HD dry on it too, which is nice. But I kind of stick to, honestly, the control sound. Yep. That's another one I like. And quite frankly, for me, and I know everybody's different, and drummers can get very eccentric in their head choices, I stick to, most of the time, it's going to probably be a coated imp, a CS, or a Genera dry. And I'll tweak from there. I'll either tune the drum down or up, or if it's a drum that has a smaller sweet spot, we'll do like what we did today. We'll drop different things on top of it to change it up a little bit. Or I'll pick a different drum with a different head if you have it. But you can get a lot of mileage out of one drum.